Hey folks, my name is Adam and I like to make tiny nerdy things, and I asked you lovely people what dynamic duo you would like to see, and much to my pleasure, y'all picked the WAH brothers. Which is fortunate because I was gonna do them anyways. Now normally I like to start with the body and then sculpt the head, but I figured all the characters in the head for these fellas, so why not start with the hardest part first? To that end, I've wrapped a wire in foil and then I can add a thin layer of Cosclay. Cosclay is sticky enough to adhere to the foil without any glue, and then I can build up the rest of the face in subsequent layers of Sculpey till I've got a more recognizable Wario face. His eyes are going to be made out of ball bearings that fill out at the bottom of my chair, and his nose gets built up until it's comically oversized, but still somewhat believable in shape. The goal here is to have these guys look as realistic as possible while still very much retaining the characteristics that make them so recognizable. For Wario, that's a big round nose and a massive jaw centered in a head that's almost but not quite too big for his body. Now when I get to Waluigi, his face will be much sharper and pointier and his head will be a fair bit smaller. And of course, Wario needs his patented crazy eye smile and powerful butt cheek chin. Once I've got his facial features finished, I'll douse him pretty heavily in alcohol to remove any tooling marks and fingerprints, then to add some complexion and skin texture, I'll gently poke him with this little tool I have. Then a bit more Cosclay will make up his eyebrows and mustache, and then I can add his ears before throwing his head into the oven for its initial bake to lock everything in place. Finally, I'll cover his scalp in bacon bond before squeezing his hat in place and adding his hair. Finally, to give his hat a bit of texture, I'll roll the handle of my scalpel across the surface. Top tip though, in the future, I think I'll remove the blade from the other side to keep from stabbing myself. Then I can add his little W patch, throw him in the oven, and get started on his body. I've mounted his head on a length of thick gauge wire that I'll wrap in several layers of aluminum before adding the wire for his arms. Wario is a pretty well-rounded guy, so to save a forged on clay, I'm going to build up the majority of his bulk using foil, then I can start building up the layers of clay. With the base layer attached, I can start refining his torso. To be more specific, he's going to get a great big round gut and 90s action hero arms.
Here we go!
Now with the upper body properly buffed and adequately smooth, I can get to work on his lower body. And while Wario's upper body is big, beefy, and oversized, his lower body is pretty well the opposite, so I'm going to try and keep that going here with itty-bitty, albeit tree-trunkian legs. Of course, if you think I'm not going to give him Herculean butt cheeks, then you've clearly never seen me sculpt before. Then another quick wash with alcohol to smooth the body out, and I can start to add his clothes. The easiest way to do this is to add some thin strips of clay where the ends of his shirts would be, and then blend them back into his torso, leaving me with a nice clean shirt sleeve. Then I'll do the same thing for his collar, before adding little ripples and folds in the cloth by pressing my tool into creases and smoothing little wormy dealies on top. I've rolled out a long worm of clay and flattened it in my pasta machine, which I'll then run the circumference of his chest. Then I can blend the bottom section into his body, giving me the lower half of his overalls. I'll press some seams into various sections where I'd expect the seams to run, then I can cut some flat strips to drape over his shoulders to act as the straps of his pants. Finally, I'll add his little pocket onto the front, bake him, and then get started on his hands. I like to make a fist by rolling out a little ball of clay and then marking out where the fingers will go before folding these sections over until I've got a thumbless mitten. Then I'll mark out each of the fingers, refine the shape, and attach a thumb. Then I can squish these onto the arm stumps I've left, blend them into the forearm, and add the little round bits at the base of the glove. Then the final piece of the Wario puzzle will be making the wooden clogs traditionally worn by the evil versions of Italian plumbers. Now I did kinda make a dum-dum here by cutting the armature for Wario's legs too short, so I had to make the clogs separately, then fit him onto them in the hopes that they can support his ridiculous upper body. But with that finished, Wario is done and we're on to making Waluigi. Waluigi's head follows pretty much the same process as Wario's, except it's a little bit longer and a little bit pointier. Otherwise, it's the old eyes, nose, mouth, chin, ears, mustache, hair, and finally hat. And again, with the head finished and baked, I can attach it to an armature, only this time it's a much longer and creepier armature that I can bend into that patent-pending Waluigi lean. This time, however, since Waluigi is much skinnier than Wario, I don't need to bulk out the body with foil at all. Instead, I can just cover it all with clay right off the get-go. I've also learned from my mistakes, and I'm going to make sure to attach his clogs to his body from the get-go. It's more important with Waluigi as well, since Wario's leggings fit inside his shoes, while Waluigi's got boot-cut jeans that hang over top. Of course, because he's halfway to a full Slav squat, I'm gonna need to add a whole bunch of wrinkles and folds into his pants. To do this, I'll start by adding lots of tiny worms of clay along the length of his leg, wherever I think a fold would be. Then I'll blend the edges in and use my silicone shaper to smooth the rolls out before finally painting them with more alcohol. Then his arms get covered in a thin layer of clay before being bent into position across his legs. Once in position, I can start bulking them up before moving on to the detail. This will get added the same way as with Wario. I'll roll some flat worms of clay and then attach them around the edges where his clothing will be, then blend them down into the layers beneath. Now I want his left hand to be draping over his leg, so I'll flatten a ball of clay, then cut some fingers out, roll them into more finger-shaped shapes, then add a thumb. Then I can attach this to his arm, blend it into the sleeves, and then start adding the detail. And with the sculpting finished, we're ready to get painting, but because I'll be using a lot of light colors, I want to give them both a nice light gray primer. I'll start with the skin tones because it's going to be the lightest color, so I can slop it on all willy-nilly and then paint over it with the darker colors later. After all, my painting style revolves around the question, what's the quickest way that I can get paint on this with the least amount of effort? Wario also has a mean case of rhinophyma, and Waluigi, has a mean case of bruised nose, I guess? I don't know, his nose is purple, so I'll blend a bit of purple into it. And then to finish off all the skin tones, I'll hit all the wrinkles and creases with a reddish-brown wash. Then I can get on to the clothing, starting with Wario's yellow shirt and hat, followed by his purple overalls. Finally, his shoes will get a coat of deep green, and I can get started on Waluigi, who is also mostly purple. I'll paint his shirt and hat with a royal aubergine, then highlight the folds by tickling the tips with a lighter shade of the same color. Then I can give his overalls a deep bluish purple paint job, followed by the same lighter tip highlights. Then his shoes get a vibrant coat of orange, and I can paint both pairs of gloves white. And Waluigi gets his patented upside down and backwards L logo painted onto his gloves, as well as covered in on his hat, before Wario gets the same treatment with his W. Then I can finish it all off by painting the teeth and gums before painting their hair brown and the moustaches black. I've also given Waluigi his blue eyeshadow before giving him tiny crazy brown pupils, and then Wario will get his own set of insano eyeballs. And to finish them off, I'll coat the eyes in a little UV resin to give them a nice eyeball shine. Then all we need is something for them to stand on. Now I spent almost as much time trying to decide what sort of pedestal they should be standing on before deciding to just go simple and make a rocky brick block. Then I'll cut a few of the bricks out so that I can have a teeny bit of height variation before retracing all the lines with a ball stylus to exaggerate the edges. Then I'll take my fancy shiny rock and gently add some texture. To seal the foam before painting and to add a bit of durability, I'll mix up a batch of Grandma's Secret Sauce. This is 1 part Mod Podge and 1 part black paint. And then you mix it together and slather it all over your foam. And once it's had ample time to dry, I'll paint the bricks with a light gray and add a bit of color variation by painting a few of the bricks different colors before coating everything in a heavy layer of Grandma's other secret sauce, black wash. And once dried, everything should have a uniform grungy look, and I can work my way through progressively lighter gray dry brushes to give all the edges a nice highlighting. Then I can stick Wario and Waluigi in our classic butt-to-butt pose, and we're on to the Glamour Shots. There you go, folks. I hope you like this one, since you kinda asked for it, and if you didn't like it, well, then I'm sorry and I'll do better. But if you did like it, then leave me a comment down below, hit that little like button, and be sure to subscribe for more weekly videos. Of course, if you'd like to help out that little bit extra, then head on over to my Patreon and join the ever-growing army of tiny nerdy people that help make these weekly videos a reality. Speaking of which, a huge thank you to my newest patrons, Autumn Kinman, James O'Neill, Golda Fid, Nancy Chase, Lawrence Popple, Rachel Kaplan, Anna Vittori, Dawn Solo, Melanie Gonzalez, Caden Kanth, Alex Byrne, E.N. Oop and R, Scavenge, Kelly Skyling Eden, Martha Rafferty, Desmond and Harrison, Richard Layton, Megan K, Seal, Sean Cunningham, Marble Wings, Dylan Sanders, Asa, Germ Nasty 69, Everwin, Paxton Gladman, Keosa, Mikolas, Michelle McAdams, Zachary Oust, Kayla Wilson, Greg and Madeline Becker, Isaac F., Henry Wildgoose, and whether we wanted it or not, we stepped into a war with Cabal on Mars, so let's get to taking out their command. You are the undersized body upon which the oversized head that is this channel rests. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Cheers.